So I want to talk to you about what your thought is about how this is being handled, the discussion you just heard, the response. Can you tell me briefly how you feel about the idea of a national ban on handguns? And I know it's one of the many measures that they're looking at and that they're tasked with evaluating. How do you see that idea? What do you think of it generally?
I think it's probably the most ineffective solution that I've ever heard of. The idea that you would direct your efforts towards a group that historically has not been responsible for crimes involving firearms is absolutely ridiculous. It's an approach that's been taken before. It doesn't work. It's become abundantly clear the way the matter's being handled in there. There's a lot of great things that are being kicked around. The idea that we would invest in our communities, that we would spend time developing the necessary programs to make this situation improve. The Canadian firearm community is very interested in seeing effective solutions being delivered by our supposed leaders. I'm not seeing it. I'm seeing, what's supposed to be a discussion really just being a platform for people to lay the groundwork for things like the bans, the easy solution, the picking at low-hanging fruit, so to speak. Legal firearm community is not responsible for the violence that you're hearing about in the news. They're just not. There have been moments when people have thrown around statistics like 50% of firearms being domestically sourced. I can tell you now that those numbers have been proven to be untrue. There is some speculation amongst many firearm owners that efforts are being made to take property, legally owned property from people without justification, which is the last thing that our leaders should be thinking about doing, but they're thinking about it. And I don't see a lot of discussion going on in there. I see a lot of people, like I say, laying the groundwork, misleading people into thinking that effective solutions are being contemplated. I don't see that. I see some great ideas in there, but I also see some things that I'm not liking.
And so the head of the Toronto Police Union has kind of echoed one thing that you're saying, which is that a ban on handguns in particular is not a good idea, ineffective, proven to be.
I think it would be a very scary prospect for police officers to have to enforce a ban. How do you enforce a ban? Are we looking at confiscation? Are we looking at taking away property from people that legally obtained it just a few months or a few years ago? Are we going to send police to people's homes to recover property that was obtained legally, that people worked long hours and hard long hours to obtain,
Right.
Have jumped through the necessary hoops, have done everything imaginable to do what's necessary to legally own firearms in this country and to not be responsible for any of the problems that people want solutions to.
So why do you think it's even on the national agenda as a consideration?
I think there's a lot of reasons for that. Some of which I don't want to say on the air.
That's fine.
I think it's a simple thing to convince the public that something's being done by saying, well, we're going to affect some bans. We're going to take the guns off the streets. They're not the same guns being used. And if you're not attacking the root causes of the problem, and I mean, some of those things were discussed in there today, and some of the ideas are fantastic. The easy thing to do is to tell people we're going to do something. We're going to get the guns off the streets. We're going to have a ban. And it won't accomplish anything. If you're not targeting the people that are committing the violent acts involving firearms, then you're not really doing anything. It's an easy thing to do. And quite frankly, there are people that want it done for various reasons, I suppose. And it's an easy thing to put forward to the public and say, we're going to ban some things, and that's going to make some changes. It won't make any difference. As a former police officer, I never knew the legal firearm community to be directly involved. If anything, I always knew them to be the most compliant, the finest citizens in the country I've ever encountered from firearm owners. Right? They're the ones that have to act and conduct themselves in a way that allows them to maintain their license status. These are not the people committing crimes, and they know that.
And is your organization a national organization?
We're global now.
You're global.
Right? Yeah. Well, we have.
So he made, Minister Blair talked again and again about this being a national issue, conducting national town halls. How do you see your members outside of Toronto seeing this issue versus inside of the GTA and Ontario? Is there a difference between?
I really wish people could be here today to see what went on in there. I don't see meaningful, constructive discussion in there. I see people standing up and saying what's on their mind, and that's fantastic, but there really isn't an exchange. They're reading questions off cards, and they're answering things the way they want to. And quite frankly, I'm seeing people being steered into a certain narrative. It's all heading towards the direction of bans and registries, and you can see them tap dancing around the subject. Some people in there are, like I said, putting forward some fantastic ideas. Unfortunately, I don't think that those are going to be the focus of what the federal government has put forward. You're looking at bills like C-71. It doesn't mention gang violence or gangs in it at all. Really what it's doing is it's targeting legal gun owners, the very people that go through all the necessary steps. It's tantamount to targeting the daily commuter and thinking that he's the guy that steals a car. I mean, a person that gets a license, insures a car properly, takes a safety course, and gets the proper validation sticker for his car isn't going to run out, steal one, and use it in the commission of a crime. They're two completely distinctly different groupings of people, and all the laws that they seem to generate seem to target essentially the commuter, which is ridiculous. And that's why I'm here. I want to see what it is that they're talking about. I'm not seeing effective solutions being put forward. I'm seeing the narrative sort of being given a direction that is misleading people, to be perfectly honest.
And you're coming from a place of experience and insight that most people probably don't have hearing about this debate in mainstream. And we heard the panel, and particularly Minister Blair, talk about a lack of data and the police not having ready access to some of the information that would inform this debate. What are some of the barriers to getting that kind of information?
Oh, if the long gun registry was reinstituted, I imagine they could draw from that source. That's something that the Liberal Party would love to see introduced, despite their best efforts to convince the public that they do not want to reintroduce the long gun registry and create the kind of data that I believe they're talking about.
But is that helpful data to them when they're trying to figure out where guns come from and how to target?
I'm pro-registration. I'm pro-regulation. I'm pro-public safety. Always have been. I served the public for 20 years in that capacity as a police service member. I will always put that as my first priority. The registry was a failure, an epic failure, all right? And that's why it was abolished and removed by the Conservative government. They would love to bring it back, but they can't convince the public that it's worth the expense. And that's realistically what I've been talking about, and why I started my company years ago, is I want to see effective solutions put forward, cost-effective ones as well. A giant, colossal waste of taxpayers' dollars to come up with solutions that are completely ineffective at combating violent crime involving firearms. Is not what we want. We want effective solutions. We want stiffer penalties. We want a system that keeps people incarcerated when they commit violent crimes instead of putting them back out on the street right away, which is something I saw quite a bit of as a police officer. The firearm community is very frustrated. We seem to continuously get targeted, and the problem isn't really being addressed. I don't know if that properly answered your question or not. But...
Is there anything else you want to say?
You know what? I'm glad I showed up here today because it certainly confirmed some things that I feared.
That's too bad.
Yeah, it's very unfortunate. I want to see effective solutions put forward. I don't believe that that's going to happen. I don't think it's being pushed by the Liberal government. I see this major metropolitan centers starting to get behind this idea of bans. If the public knew how ineffective it would be at combating the violence and knew that the solutions that are being presented are going to be as awful as they are in terms of good results, I don't think they'd be getting behind it. I want to see people showing the truth.
Are one of these people your MPs?
Nope.
This is your area? No.
Nope. No, it is not. It was within driving distance, so I thought I would just see what it's all about. It's that important to me. I like the idea of maintaining the freedoms that I have. I like the idea of not having property that I've legally acquired taken from me without justifiable cause. I don't like the idea of being blamed for something that I have no involvement in, and I know tens of thousands of people that have no involvement in crime, that have no interest in harming anybody. It's the legal firearm community, and yet the laws they continuously generate seem to impact only that community. Let's come up with some better solutions. We should insist on more